What's on your mind, Canberra? Call now, 6255 1206. Thanks to Bloomer's Lawyers, this is Canberra Live with Leon Delaney on 2CC.
Well, it's about 10 to 5 now. As you know, the federal government is contemplating imposing caps on international students, which has certainly ruffled a few feathers here in Canberra, particularly at the ANU, which depends quite significantly on international students, but not just at the ANU, at institutions all around Australia. We have this bizarre situation where government policy over decades now has increasingly forced universities and institutions of higher education to rely upon international students for essential revenue to pay for their operating costs and to fund their research activities. And yet now the government wants to impose caps on the numbers of international students they can accept. And what are they going to provide additional funding to the universities to keep them financially viable? And what about the larger scale effects on not just the universities, but the broader economy and the community? Joining me now, Executive Director of the International Student Education Agents Association, Melanie MacFarlane. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leon.
It's a bizarre state of affairs, isn't it?
Yes, indeed it is. You'd almost say that the government was single-handedly taking a massive sledgehammer to a very important part of the economy and not understanding how pivotal this is to actually various parts, the wider economy, and how it affects so many different parts of it.
Indeed. And of course, it is a significant piece of the economy, but I'm told it's worth something like $50 billion a year. But on top of that, there's the flow-on effects through the rest of the economy, isn't there? The small businesses that employ international students part-time and the impact that they have on their businesses. The impact of this policy decision-making would be far-reaching, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, indeed, you only have to go back to COVID and the borders being closed for 2 years and what happened at the end of that time when there was just a massive skill shortage, for example, and even, places like the small business like cafes and so on who just didn't have the staff, couldn't open. Sorry, we have no chefs, we can't open, and no baristas and so on. International students tend to do a lot of those jobs and fill in a lot of jobs that tend to be transient for Australians. And so, yes, there is a massive knock-on effect of this. And we have to be very careful that with these types of knee-jerk reactions, we then don't have yet another one in a year's time, once we've had the election, because of these problems that have been created. Yeah.
One of the weird things that the government has done is jack up the application fee for students applying for a visa to come to Australia in the first place. And okay, well, governments do that all the time. They increase the fee. But at the same time, if they're unsuccessful in their application, they don't get their money back. That's hardly fair, is it?
Absolutely, Leon. The thing is, it's $1,600 now, which has gone up from $700 approximately. So it's been a massive hike in fees. Now, that would be understandable in the sense of, it's a great visa for a good country, good quality education, and so on. Yes, that's great. But there's been an incredible increase in visa refusals from overseas and also onshore in Australia, purportedly because of integrity issues and the rise in protection visa applications for certain nationalities. But the reality is we're seeing a plethora of extremely good applications being refused to the extent that it's very hard for education and migration agents to trust that the application will be successful. And so how can you get a student to pay that amount of money?
Yeah, indeed. And of course, if you're going to impose arbitrary caps on numbers, what that means effectively is that well-qualified candidates will be refused for no good reason at all other than they don't fit into the quota. That's not fair at all, is it?
No, it's not fair at all. And it then, ironically, doesn't fulfill the migration strategy that the government was so excited about at the end of last year when they released it, which is where international students are recognised as being an integral part of the skilled migration program. And after their studies, they can then stay in Australia and fill skill shortages. But we've seen so many refusals of those potential applicants, let's say in engineers, architects, etc., who could and trades applicants who could help to build Australia, all the houses that we need in Australia. But these visas have been just randomly refused in huge swathes. And so it's very difficult for that migration strategy also to be fulfilled.
Now, the government has pointed to instances of abuse of the immigration system for people that are perhaps coming to Australia ostensibly to study, but in reality might be coming for other reasons. And the institutions that support those applications have sometimes been criticised for not necessarily being genuinely interested in providing that education. Do we need better regulation of what institutions can actually offer this sort of visa opportunity?
The thing is, Leon, we've got regulation in place already. So with regards to the capping, we've got CRICOS, the Commonwealth Register, which is for education providers to be able to offer courses to international students. And so that number itself can be capped, as it were. And then there's other ways of monitoring this. And we had ASQA, who've been given they're the monitoring regulatory authority for the education providers. They say that they now have the resources to be able to monitor. And we haven't seen that many education providers close down. Perhaps that will happen. But there's plenty of good regulation already in place. We don't need to complicate the system by introducing even more and giving more power to certain government ministers. We just need to use what we have right now, and we can resolve this. There's education agents, for example, can self-regulate. There's plenty of things that can already be done without bringing in these measures that will then really upset the apple cart completely and just bring great damage to an incredibly shining sector of the economy.
Indeed, Melanie, thanks for your time today.